So I just finished porting the game, or the earliest version of the game that my friend and I started over the summer, from SDL to SFML. So right now, you really can't tell the difference. This window here is the SDL version, and this window here is the SFML version. So when I hit an arrow key, immediately you notice that the SDL window is quite a bit faster than the SFML version. When you just hit it once, this isn't too big a deal because the SFML version has time to catch up. But if you just hold down the key, you start getting some major discrepancies. Overall, I don't know how much this is going to affect the gameplay, because unless you're playing the game on two different libraries side by side, you're not really going to notice it. So, and if I only write it for one library, you're not going to be able to notice it anyway. But it's just something to take into consideration. So one thing that's really different about the SFML and the SDL is what happens when you resize the screen. In SFML, it kind of tries to scale it and it gets a little wonky. In the SDL, just puts a black box around it and everything stays the same. Also, another difference between SDL and SFML is, in order for SDL to recognize key inputs, you have to have the window selected, whereas with SFML, it can be selected or you can be focusing on something else. I'm not sure if I like that feature or bug in SFML as much. Seems like it could screw some stuff up in the future. So that is the overall game. They're both running at 60 frames per second, so the speeds is not related to FPS. So really looking at the code, well, it is a port. It is pretty well identical on either version. I did have to write a few workarounds for the SFML version because, well, it's different than SDL. So, but really they're one or two lines, maybe. Well, in the end, the SFML version is 308 lines and the SDL is 286. So it's a little bit longer in SFML, which is kind of strange, although not really when I think about it, because I made the SFML version GNU compliant, so these brackets are down here on a new line instead of right behind the statement. So that probably expands it quite a bit. But yeah, I found coding in SFML to be quite a bit easier than in SDL, but thinking about it and looking back at the SDL code, I don't know if it actually was that much easier. Looking here, this is pretty simple to get the keyboard state, but in SFML, you just type keyboard, is key pressed, and then what your button is. SDL, you have to instantiate this uint key state thing and then get the key state, and I guess it's not that much more work. I do like that you can set the SDL set video mode right down here instead of having to do it upon instantiation. So like up here, I had to pretty much set everything in the screen when I created the screen. So I don't know how much that does. I did have to write a quick workaround up here in the init, and really all it does is check if the screen is open. So I don't think that works too well. In the SDL, it just checks if it's null. So yeah, it works. So that's really all I have to say about that. The game is working. It's pretty simple, not a whole lot to it. It's not really even a game yet, but yeah.